Oh, I am. I'm a volunteer staff here now.
We'll go over to you.
Alright, so guys, my name's Ben. I'm studying aviation. I'll be graduating in spring of 24.
I'm Bobby. I'm studying mechanical engineering, and I'll be graduating in the spring of 24.
I'm Harrison. I'm studying robotics, and I'm also graduating in spring 2024.
I'm Zach. I'm construction engineering. I'm graduating this spring.
I'm Hank, drums, and then AET.
Charles, I'm studying computer science, and I'm graduating next semester.
I'm Eli. Construction management. I'm graduating this spring.
I'm Anna. I'm studying civil engineering and graduating this spring.
I'm Emma. I'm studying environmental engineering and graduating this spring.
And finally, I'm studying industrial engineering and graduating this spring.
I'm Abhinav. I'm studying neuroscience. God willing, I'll graduate in spring 2020.
I'm Naveen. I'm doing my master's in engineering technology. I'll be graduating this fall 2023.
Okay. Well, tonight we are talking about embracing change and like transition and that kind of stuff, which is always very fun and exciting. As well as just like how our brains are wired in facing adversity. First of all, it's really like, it's kind of normal, especially when you're changing, especially when you're graduating and changing from like this stage of life to a completely new stage of life, where there is no longer a safety net and there's no longer like, I don't know, a lot of safeguards around how your time is structured and where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing. It's very normal to feel like overwhelmed and stressed and upset. So William Bridges says that change is an external, but transition is internal. Yeah, which is really accurate. So the same change can impact people differently, so expecting friends to handle life after college differently is how you should be expecting stuff to happen. So not comparing yourselves to others, and just simply learning what God wants you to take away, and not fast forwarding to avoid the like uncomfortableness of change is huge, and one that I tried to do. It doesn't work out very well. I mean, it doesn't make it any easier actually. So not trying to fast forward through that. The timeline is also extremely different for each person. It can be a month, 3 months, 3 years, 5 years, whatever. But it's really just God like turning you into who He wants you to be, like as an adult person that's not in college anymore. So there are 3 stages of transition. The first one we'll talk about is ending, and then there's this like neutral middle zone, and then there's like starting the new thing, right? So we'll go through those 3 areas here.
What chapter did you say this was?
Sorry?
What chapter did you say this was?
It's over chapters 2 and 3, so if you scroll down to embracing change,
Okay.
you have the notes there in your Google Doc.
Right.
Sweet. Okay. So first let's think back to like transitions that you guys have already made. So something like finishing high school and heading off to college, or like moving, or something like that. Like what lessons did you learn about yourself, and how might those insights through something that you've already been through like help you through this next transition?
So I joined the Army before I went to college, so straight out of high school. So that was a big cultural shock. I guess how I got through it, or how you changed that.
Yeah, like what are some things that you learned from there that you're like, you know, this might be applicable again when I graduate college?
Still don't know what you're doing, even though it's like so regimented in the military. You're still like clueless half the time, so it's really no different than college. You're like walking around like, am I supposed to be here? Probably not, maybe. Yeah, that's good.
It's like that as an adult too, don't
Yeah,
we?
it never
Yeah, fake it till you make it, honestly.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, so that was a big one. And also like
it's the initial, like, grew up in a super small little town, like, graduated 58 people.
Wow.
So, going from that to, like, I didn't even have internet. Still don't have that at home. So I didn't know what I was doing, honestly, when I joined. Just kind of did it because I thought it sounded cool. And then when I joined, then, like, that initial, like, you're surrounded by everybody, you don't know who anyone is, so it's, like, pretty quick, and you just, like, that's kind of how it's still political, like, here, like, you come here, your first day of school, you're like, you don't know anybody, you don't know what you're doing, wait until you make it. When you start meeting people, it's really different. It's just the environment seems to
Dang, you guys aren't learning during transitions in your life. You're gonna have to learn fast in this next one. Okay, so like I said, the first cycle, or first stage of the cycle during transition is finishing, is ending. So to fully accept that something is ending, you have to allow yourself to fully process the end well. So a lot of times, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Let me read my notes and we'll go from there. So we see throughout Scripture that God is telling people to finish strong. It's not leaving loose ends or burning bridges or doing things halfway. I think this is actually, somebody want to read Acts 20:24? I think this is actually the first one I was going to reference to.
I can read it.
Thanks.
I consider my life worth nothing to me, if only I may finish the race and complete the task the Lord Jesus has given me, the task of testifying to the gospel of God's grace.
Yeah. There's several references in the New Testament to like finishing the race and running to win and doing all of these things to finish well. And it gets hard to finish well sometimes, especially if we're really excited for what's coming next. So especially if you like already have a job lined up, or you know where you're gonna move and you're super excited to start in a new city, or whatever. Like it's super easy to skip the ending and get so excited about the new beginning. But completing something well and finishing well allows you to like grieve the end of that, well as like not like again like leaving loose ends. So I've had a lot of like endings through. I mean, like one of the things that I talked about when I asked that first initial question was like, leaving high school, starting college. I've obviously graduated college and gone into adulthood, but I've also like moved a lot. And so like I've had lots of opportunities to end well. And some of them I took really well, and some of them obviously I like tried to like fast forward through. And I can tell you that like taking time to like grieve the end of something, even if you're excited for the next thing, is really good for you. And it doesn't have to be this long drawn out like funeral for your college years, but like it's good to be like, like I'm not going to be around all of these same people that I've become really, really close with, and I'm probably not going to see some of them, and some of them are going to like get married and move to, I don't know, my sister got married and moved to Texas, and so like that was one of the things. Actually, I had a lot of people get married and move to Texas when I graduated, but yeah, it's grieving stuff like that, and like not just, I mean, I miss being able to go to the co-rec and like play volleyball after TNT, and like just doing stuff like that like happened all the time, and that doesn't happen as often in your adult life, and that's okay. And there's new and other exciting things that happen in your adult life, but like those just aren't some of those things. So grieving some of those things is really good. Okay, can somebody read John 17:4?
I glorify you on earth, having accomplished the work that you gave me to do.
Yeah, so Jesus finished well. He finished strong. He accomplished everything that like God the Father had given him to do on earth. And so that's what he like calls us to as well. So the 3 questions I kind of want to I want you guys to kind of just think about, not ones that I want you to answer out loud necessarily, but just to kind of think about going forward. Do you have senioritis, or are you giving it your best to finish strong? Senioritis is a real thing. Are you mentoring someone younger than you? If not, why not? God calls us to invest in those that we are a step ahead of spiritually. And honestly, this is one of my, like, Maddie can tell you, this is one of my, like, soapboxes is mentoring. And so, like, please mentor people. Like, I mean, when I started, I was on leadership team here my sophomore year. And I was in China for the first semester of it. And so I came back and met with Nettie because I was just like, okay, so like I'm back, I'm like ready to start leadership team, and because I didn't get to start in the fall with everybody else because I was not here. But I was just like, okay, so like what's my first step? And she was just like, great, I need you to find somebody to mentor. I was like, I'm a sophomore, I am not ready to mentor anybody, and like I don't know anything. And she was just like, that's an expectation of leadership team, so you better figure it out. So she was a little nicer than that. That's my version. But I ended up mentoring Danielle, who's on staff here now, and she was the first person that I learned how to mentor, and it was really good, and it was really challenging, and it was really growing for both of us. I learned a lot about mentoring that year and the next year. And yeah, just, I mean, challenged me in my own faith in a lot of ways, and different things. So yeah, so mentoring is not like, it's not just pouring into somebody else. Like that is what it is. But like, you grow so much from being challenged and asked certain questions, and just seeing God work in another person's life. Because it's a pretty like intimate relationship. Like you get to know somebody's life, right, and like what they're going through on a constant basis. And so yeah, so you get to learn a lot through that too. Small soapbox, not small soapbox, but I'm finishing my small soapbox. Okay, and then 3rd question I want you to think about and not answer out loud is there a broken relationship that you need to make right before you leave college? There's a lot that happens in college. There's a lot that happens, especially between people when you're like living all in the same area and you're all in like in each other's lives constantly. Because like, yes, Purdue's a big campus, but like, you see a lot of the same people from day to day. And so a lot can happen with some of those relationships. I know my senior year, this wasn't involving me, but it was one of my best friends and another guy that was in our year, who we were friends with, and the 2 of them were super, super, super close. Like, I mean, they like referred to themselves as twins our freshman year, and like that kind of became a carrying joke, and they looked kind of similar and everything. And anyway, all that to say, they were super close. And our senior year, like he started dating somebody. She didn't like that relationship for him, and she was just like, hey, like I hate this for you. He didn't love that answer, so he left the ministry, and really like they had a whole big falling out over it and didn't speak for 6 or 8 months.
A long time.
It was a long time. Yeah, because that happened in like October, and they didn't speak again until like April. Because it was like April, we were in this study, and we went through this lesson, and she was just like, this is something I have to do before I leave college. Like if I don't mend this now, like it's not going to be mended, and I will hate myself for not trying. And so she did. So she texted him and was like, hey, like, can we get coffee or have lunch or whatever? And then they ended up meeting up and talking, and they are still really, really amazing friends now. And like they both live in Indy, and they go to the same church. And he got married 2 weeks ago, and she got to go to his wedding and just like see all of that. Anyway, it was all really, really good. And so I know that she was really stressed going through that time of like not knowing if that was gonna be a relationship that got to be mended. And I know that she was so like relieved and excited that it, like when it did, when they were able to kind of like come back together. So yes, think about all three of those questions. I know Nettie will kind of explain some of this later too with your homework, but your homework for this week with that is to make your Boilermaker bucket list. So a list of things that you want to do before you leave college, and then start doing them. I mean, some of you are graduating hopefully in the fall, so you have a shorter time to do your bucket list. But most of you said that you're graduating in the spring, and so have another like semester and a little less than a half now. And it'll go by really fast. If you haven't already felt that with this semester, like it's going to go by really fast. So start doing them now, and whether that's like, oh, like I need to go get lunch with this person, or I want to go on a trip with this person, or you know, I want to get coffee with a professor that you want to get to know better. Be spontaneous, do something fun that you've never taken the time to do, restoring a broken relationship, stuff like that. So, because like I said, sometimes you're still going to see some people that from college, I still see a couple people, but it's not the same, right? They don't live in, most of them live in Indy, or in Texas, or in wherever. Lots of people in Ohio now. But yeah, it's just not the same, and it's taking that time to like end those relationships well, even though it's not ending, it's ending this season of that relationship. So anyway, so in a nutshell, endings require you to dismantle the old before building the new. If you've ever watched, if anybody's into like HGTV, they always have to like do the demo day right before they can like build the new house. So yeah, so looking at stuff like that. These same concepts apply to you as you do away with your old way of living at Purdue to transition to a new life somewhere else. So, how do you think your personality style will shape the way you transition after college?
Pretty go with the flow. Just kind of like things happen, just like, oh, okay. Alright. So I think it seems to be working out alright, so I'm just going to keep on saying it.
Sounds good.
I tend to like internalize subjects. I think processing through everything is really important for me. I had some changes in my life that like happened in a really busy season where I just kind of had to hit the ground running. And I was okay from those things, but it was good for me to process through those things too. So even if it's not like, you know, knock me on my butt, like, oh, ooh, like, but it's still good to process through it in a healthy way, like, yeah.
Like, really, when it comes to new things for me in my life, I tend to be very enthusiastic about them, which isn't always a good thing because it's a very, like, shoot first, aim later kind of attitude, but, like, for the most part, though, at least I'm not, like, going into something with timidness or, like, hesitancy. I kind of just, I jump right in and, you know, kind of leave say, like, what happens, happens, and we'll move on from that, but, yeah, I'm always just very excited for the next thing, so.
I think it's going to be interesting for me because I'm kind of the opposite. I take so long to aim that I end up not even taking a shot. So it's going to be kind of interesting to try to work around that and just kind of dive head first into some things.
Maybe you should
that
work
was me
together
too.
and like balance each other.
Teamwork makes the dream.
Sorry.
Good analogy, Hank. We'll add that into our lesson.
Everybody else.
Be more patient when problems come instead of like facing it immediately.
Yeah.
Be more patient.
Okay, So our second cycle, or second section of the transition, is the like in between time, or the bridge, or the like neutral zone, however you want to like phrase that. But there's this fun little time between the end and the beginning, and it's, for me, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. When we like first did this class, when I was like in here, I thought it was gonna, I was like, oh, like it's the time between when you graduate and when you start your new job. Like that was like, that's the obvious answer. It wasn't mine. I still had one, even though I started my job right after I graduated. I still had an in-between time. First, let's go to the Bible. Somebody want to read Exodus 14:12? Thanks.
Is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness.
So a lot of times in this in-between time, it can be that like, that weird sense of like, you can long for the past, like the Egyptians, like the Israelites did, being like, I wish I was just back there in Egypt. Like, even though that was like not obviously where they were supposed to be, and obviously not a good time for them, they were in slavery, like, we can have this unhealthy like longing to be back in the good old days, right? And I think there's the other side of the pendulum too, of like just being like, but I'm gonna start it now, even though it's not time to start it now. And so anyway, okay, so there's a quote from a Chinese student, I think from this book, right?
I think so, yeah.
That says, Americans seem anxious to fill the hour, which I can attest to. You should all see my calendar. It's atrocious. So it's easier to be busy and to remain busy and not be alone, so we don't have to face our inner self. But that really just kind of pushes it forward and lets it like accumulate and like fester when you don't deal with stuff and you just like ignore it. So the middle time is also a common time to be bored and to fall back into old sin habits. So being aware of that and guarding against that by having accountability and staying in God's Word. Pray, fast, read God's Word. There's an example in Luke 4 where Christ was tempted by the devil in the wilderness. So we're made for the mundane things in life much as the mountaintop experiences. In Deuteronomy 29, we see that the Israelites' shoes and clothes didn't wear out for all 40 years of them wandering in the desert. And God was providing food for them, but they were remembering their past slavery experience through rose-colored glasses. Yeah, so like I said, like my experience with that, like I thought it was that in between of like, but after you graduate, before you start your new job, and I was just like, I don't have that problem because I can skip that part of the cycle because I'm starting my job right after I graduate. It's not true. Just this is, okay. I started at Chick-fil-A. Right after I graduated, I had a job. I had it like lined up. I had my job offer at the end of March was when I got it. I was gonna be the marketing director there. It was gonna be great. I already tried to convince my boss that I was trash at marketing. She didn't believe me. She still won't admit that I was trash at marketing, but everyone else does. So it's okay. But I was like, okay, jumping into this job. I have my job. I'm like in my new life, right? But it was this in-between phase where like I knew I wasn't going to be good at marketing. I knew I wasn't going to enjoy marketing, and that was during a time as well where like God didn't have me jump right into volunteering here or being on volunteer staff here like right after I graduated. I remember having a conversation with Nettie and being like, I have to take a year off, and she was just like, okay, but like, are you sure? I was just like, no, like God is telling me I have to take a year before I come back and help here, just to like separate myself. And so I did. So because I had just graduated, I wasn't like super involved in my church yet. Like I had a small group, but like it was a new small group, so it wasn't even like super. What's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't like the same people. It was a lot of like transitory people, where everybody was trying to figure out if this was the place for them. And so we had new people come and go every single week. So there was no like sameness of community. I went to work. I worked my 40 hours, but wasn't like super involved in a lot there. And I came home, and then I wasn't doing anything with launch. And most of my friends from college had moved away, and like the rest of them that stayed were like still in college, and so we're still like doing stuff here at launch. And I wasn't supposed to be here at launch because God said no. So, so it was this weird time where I was just like there was nothing to do. I went to work for my 8 or 9 hour shift. I came home from work and I did nothing. There was nothing every day. It was atrocious. But I did learn a lot about like just sitting in my own self during that time, and it was rough, and I hated it, but it was so like it was so good for me to have done. And it's okay to sit in it and be like, like this is not the most fun thing at the moment. Like that's not in and of itself a sinful thought, so also be comforted in that. But what is sinful is to be like, I'm skipping this part because I hate it. Like that part is like not what's going to be healthy for you. That's not what God wants for you. Because even during these like mundane, boring, in between times, like He's preparing you for something, right? I had a youth pastor who talked about the times in the Bible that we don't get to read about, and it's just like, okay, well, like we read about like Jesus' birth, and we read about the one time when he was like 12 or whatever and got left at the temple, and then we don't see him again until he's 30, right? And then we see his 3 years of ministry, and it's just like, so there's 30 years of time that was in there that we don't see, that God was preparing him for these 3 years of ministry. And that's true of like almost every character in the Bible. We don't see any character of the Bible like day by day through their whole life, right? We see a couple chunks of years here and a couple chunks of years here, just the like highlight reel moments. And that's what we see on like social media and stuff too of people's lives, right? Like it's just their highlight reels. We don't see all of their like day to day, like, oh my gosh, like I had to take out the trash today. Like that's not what you see on social media. Anyway, that's that. Okay. So part of that is also just making sure that you are remembering your past accurately, not through that like rose-colored glasses, oh, the golden years, whatever. And then trusting God for His daily provision, and just seeing what He wants for you to be learning in preparation for whatever's coming next. Okay, then we get to the third stage, being the new beginnings. So this is not, there's no clean-cut time frame of these cycles. Mary Oliver has a quote that says, most things that are important lack a certain neatness. It's a great quote, actually. And like I said, like it's different things and different timelines, and sometimes it can take a month or 2 months or a year or 3 years or 5 years. Mine was 8 months. It was until we opened up the current Lafayette location. It was when I like really started to find like a new beginning in my like after college life. Okay. So it's in this stage of the cycle that you become hopeful and get excited about the new life. So some things start to click, you get excited to welcome everything. You can read more about in the book After College for tips on transitioning. Yeah, like I said, my new start was that new start. I moved into a different position. I still wasn't involved with launch yet, but was looking forward to the following school year. Had started talking to Nettie about what that was going to look like in the fall, so that we could kind of get prepared and stuff. My small group was a little more concrete, and everything. It seems like super cheesy, and honestly is like not completely realistic to say like it all just fell into place, but like it kind of felt that way. Like everything just kind of like you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's kind of how that can work sometimes, which is really good. Okay. So of these three parts of this cycle, which do you think you're gonna struggle with the most, and is there anything that this group can do to help? Before we, I wanna hear everybody's answers, so we're gonna just go around. I'm just gonna make that a rule. But before we answer this question, I will say that like one of the biggest things that I got from this study was just knowing that there was other people going through the same thing. Like honestly, that can be bigger than like you think. There was a couple of things that I came in here and I was just like, oh, like my parents might have taught me that part before. Like I've heard this from somebody before, and so like there were some of those lessons that were like, yeah, like I can see how somebody else might not know this, but like my parents taught me that or whatever. But like the community aspect of this was like honestly one of the biggest things for me, was knowing that other people were going through this at the same time, and that like I could call somebody and be like, this is hard, and they'd be like, I know. Me too. So yes, so please make this group something that you like use during your transition. This is a community that you can kind of rely on each other and help each other through stuff. So okay, which part of the cycle do you think you're going to struggle with the most? And is there anything that this group can help? And like I said, we're going to go in a circle because I want everybody's answers. This is your first time, right? Yeah, we're not going to start with you. Ben?
Okay, so I think I'd probably struggle with that neutral zone the most. Like, as an example, right now I'm working 2 jobs and still a full-time student, and that is like fantastic for me. Like I'm enjoying it, I really am, because it takes up my time. I'm super busy, and I don't have time to like just sit there and do nothing. But I do think, and especially because I know this is going to come, and once I graduate, no matter if I have a job lined up or not, it's still going to be there. I think I just need to like learn to be okay with that and like really understand that it's all right to not be, working 40 hours a week while also taking full-time classes. Like it's all right to kind of relax a little and really maybe, dive into some thoughts that I've been putting off for a while. I don't really know off the top of my head what kind of help I would need for that, but if anyone has any suggestions, totally open to it for sure.
I think my issue is going to be kind of like, that transitionary period in between, like going from one routine to a different routine. Like the routine now is kind of like just like wake up, go to the gym, and then do homework until I fall asleep, instead of like then transitioning from that into like, okay, going to work, and then I have like the rest of my day. Like, wait, what do I do with this time now? Just I feel like I might kind of get knocked off course in like a way, and I'm just kind of, I'm not sure how I'm gonna go about kind of dealing with that, other than to just kind of wing it and see what happens.
Sorry, what was the question again?
So, of the ending well, the transition, the in-between period, or the new beginnings, which one do you think you're going to struggle with the most?
It's the transition.
Transition to you?
Like getting used to mainstream.
Yeah.
I would say the new beginning, just because I don't like new situations and change and going into something that I'm not familiar with. So I think that will be probably my biggest struggle. The ending, because you always miss the clowns, but you don't really miss the circus part. You miss people that you're with, but then it's like the gold night that you were talking about earlier. It's like whatever situations you and buddies you're going through, and then get through it, or like whatever. Yeah, it's great times, but then maybe those times aren't the best. It's just the people you're with, and you're about to like bounce out. You're not gonna see them every day. You're gonna do all these things. So that for sure is probably the hardest.
Hank, I think you need to write like quotes by Hank. And we just need to incorporate them into our curriculum because I love your analogies and they're just so funny.
I agree.
Such an unconventional way.
Yeah, I think you need to start writing this stuff down. And I'm just gonna like, hey, and this is some great advice from an alumni named
These are
Hank.
like Hankisms.
Hankisms.
Yeah, the she goes like her.
You can write a book.
Last week, Oh, I'm not gonna bring up what I brought up.
You should include that as well, yes. The stripper analogy.
Oh, it hurt. I have to go back and watch it.
You definitely should.
Oh, the one week I missed.
Anyway,
On that note, Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, jokes.
I think I'm going to struggle with the in part two, just finding the intentional community, being intentional with my time with God. That sort of thing can be a challenge. How I walk with people, alongside being encouraging in my walk with God. Also just leaving everyone here. This will be a tough part too. Being a military kid, I thought I would have gotten over that by now, but I don't know. I still fear the reality.
Just because you move a lot when you're growing up does not make it easier to leave college. I get that.
I think the new beginning for me, like I'm at a place where I'm kind of craving the neutral zone of having the free time and having the like space to breathe. But then the challenge of like using that well to prepare for what's next and then knowing when it's time to take the next step. I think that's what I'm gonna struggle with. Getting a little too comfortable and like, but how it's time? This is my mind. Like, and so when is the time to take the next step? When is the right next step? Yeah.
I think definitely the ending for me, not holding on to those things that are in the past that like, oh, that was a really good time, or that was a really good like part, knowing that person and being around those people really well, not like holding on to it and continually coming back to it, keeping me in that past, but more like letting go to an extent and being able to move on to it.
I'd probably say transition. I would say it's just gonna be a lot of change that I'm facing, so just getting used to like having like pretty much every aspect of my life be different. And also I'm like super excited for the next chapter, but I think that leads to me having like really high expectations, and like I might be disappointed or might not be thinking about the hardships that I come with that instead of just being really
I think the end, I definitely tend to covet the past, and like I do it all the time. I'll even like from semester to semester, I'm like, oh, I wish I were back in that semester because that was a really good one. But I guess just realizing that I think it's helpful to see that like there have been semesters that I've enjoyed even more than the previous ones. So like I'm gonna enjoy phases of life in the future more than probably the ones that I'm in right now. So yeah, embracing change.
I think for me it's gonna be like that transition period of just kind of not really like knowing like when you're just driving and like you get home from work and you're like, I don't know what to do. Like I just don't do well just not having something to do. And so filling that time intentionally so it's not like I'm just filling it for the sake of filling it, and also taking time to spend with God.
I'll keep my response vague. So, paying too much attention on one thing rather and devoting too much time and energy into it that I lose track of all the other things. So, like in a magic trick, you pay attention to the card or whatever, but then you don't know what exactly happened. Pretty much you lose track of how the magician did his trick.
I think it's harder for me to let go of the previous routine, people, and things that keep me and adapting to something different. That is something that I would struggle.
Yeah.
And take some time to get.
Yeah, I remember as far as like talking about ending being a really hard part. My friend Carmen and I graduated at the same time, and her inquiry is still coming up sometime in the
Yeah,
future.
they'll be
right?
here in
They'll
November,
be here.
yeah.
There you go. In November, you'll meet them. Anyway, so Carmen and I were talking like a year and a half ago, something like that, and we were both just like, yeah, we miss college, kinda. Miss the concept of college, of like when, like, I don't know, like there, like I said, like earlier, like the very beginning, like there's still like that safety net version of like life, and you, honestly, we were talking about it, we were just like, we were doing more things, but there was like, all the things you went to, there was less expected of you than there is like at work, because we were like, we just go to work and it seems like less hours, but you go and like, if you go to class, you could just not pay attention in class. Like we did that pretty consistently. but like you go to work and like people expect you to like think, like be there. And like it's just a lot more intense. We were talking about that. Anyway, it was just really funny. But yeah, so we missed like the concept of college, but we were just like, yeah, I don't think I could do it again. Like, because we were both stupid busy in college. We were both stupid busy in college. Where like both of us would be out of our apartments by like 6:30 every morning, and we weren't back in our apartments until like 1 or 2 a.m. Yeah, that was all of like junior and senior year. And so we were both just like, I don't know if I'm gonna handle that anymore. But anyway, so yes, and rose-colored glasses. Sometimes you think of those stories, but there's plenty more. Okay, and I'm really low on time, so we're gonna zoom, guys. Okay, next thing is like kind of more on like how your brain works in your 20-somethings. So there's a book called The Defining Decade, and it just talks about like using your 20s like to the fullest potential. Your 20s are like your it talks about like your brain is still developing. There's still a lot of things that like are still forming in your brain, in your psyche, in your whatever, that like you're still creating habits, you're still learning things, you still have a really good ability to learn and change and do different things. And what is this? Yeah.
If you want, I could just send them that section.
That's probably
that way, since
better than
you
zooming through this.
I could do the screen time, social media, calming self, and then if you just want to skip to like the adversity section,
great.
I'll just send you guys that part so you can read it on your own.
Because it's all really good information.
It's really good information, yeah.
It's really good information,
Okay.
and you should go read it. I just will not do it justice. Okay, let me keep facing adversity. Here we go. Just keep scrolling. Okay. Moving into talking about facing adversity. Yeah, so we talked about the 3 different stages of the cycle, and like all of those include adversity in one form or another. And when we face adversity, we need to rethink our right to a normal life. So what is normal? Having a chronic disease is normal for some people. When we lose a loved one, it forces us into a new norm. And so like there's a lot of different versions of like a new normal. And so looking at like what is normal. Why do you think that we are usually so unprepared to face adversity?
We're not expecting it.
Yeah, not expecting it.
You never know exactly what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Your first approach is going to be usually wrong because it's just based on something that it's not.
Sure.
You want to be in control when you face adversity. You feel like you're losing control. The world's going faster than you.
Yeah. I mean, adversity's hard, right? It's like the definition of the word. So like, I don't know about you guys, I usually like to find like the like think or work smarter, not harder. Like that's like my motto for life. Like that's, I always want to make stuff easier on myself if I can. And I feel like that's most of us. Like we want to take the easy road. We live in a culture that's like you deserve to be happy, and happiness is like, you talk about the difference between happiness and joy, but I don't have a lot of time left. So if you want to talk about the difference between happiness and joy, we can talk about that later. And like if you're not happy, you're doing something wrong, and you know, all of the little life hacks. I love the little life hack videos online. Like usually they're stupid, but like they're kind of fun. But we live in this like age of life hacks of like doing something smarter so that it's easier, and so that we can be happier, and so that you know, life can be better. But what society is teaching us is not in line with like what God says in the Bible. Hardships and getting out of our comfort zone makes us stronger and teaches us to depend on God. In fact, like Jesus did not promise us an easy life. He actually promises the opposite. You know, he says, in this life you will have troubles, but take heart because I have overcome the world. So like it doesn't, he promises that we are going to struggle. He promises that we are going to face adversity. But the hope and the joy and the ability to go on is in knowing that like he has a plan for your life, and that he's in control of the situation, right? So I'll just go ahead and read a couple of these verses. So James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds." I feel like that's not the full verse, but you should go look at that verse. It's really good. Romans 8:18 says, "I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us." Okay, so 3 things that highly affect how we approach a hard time. How we were raised, how we've seen it modeled for us, affluence or how wealthy we are, and cultural pressures to focus on gratification. Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that parents teach us how to handle adversity, and each parent is going to handle it differently, and maybe in different situations while we're growing up. And so like looking at how your parents handled adversity, like looking back on your childhood, is usually really helpful, because it shows you just like what worked and what didn't for them. You can definitely learn from other people's mistakes. It's another like little ism that I live by. I love learning from other people's mistakes, and then you don't have to make them. It's really wonderful. So yeah, so looking at like how other people in your life, whether it's a parent, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a teacher, whatever, handles adversity will help a lot. How we handle adversity with godly character could be the greatest witness that we have to others. One of the things that Nettie and Ben and the runners and Danielle and I all went down to Texas this summer, and one of the speakers there was talking about, he was a campus minister, and he was just like, you know, I do all these Bible studies, and I mentor all these guys, and like blah 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 blah, and I do all of these things, and he was just like, but one of the big things that like the guys talked about was just like this one time we went into this restaurant and there was people smoking, and my baby was there, and we asked people, you know, we asked if we could go to a window, and they wouldn't let us open a window, and so like, but it was cold outside, and so that's what, and he was just like, but the guys all came up afterwards to me, like whether it was that night or later that week or whatever, and was just like, that is what I got out of this week, was like seeing you handle that like situation. And so like that, like crazy random stuff like that, like going through difficult situations or hard times, like can be a huge witness to like the people around you. And the only way that we can be that like good witness for that is like trusting God and like exhibiting His character through that. Yeah. So a couple more verses. Romans 8:28, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Matthew 5:44 and 45 says, "But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes His sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous." So after graduation, or even tomorrow, you don't have any idea what life will bring you, but you know that God will be walking with you. I, again, running out of time, so I'm going to keep this like not going into specifics, but like there's so many times that I've seen, whether it was in college, coming out of college, after, you know, coming after college, that I've seen like God really just walk through life with me, that I definitely couldn't have done on my own. And I've also seen times in my life where I've tried to do it on my own, and God was like, I'm literally right here, and I want to be with you, and you're not letting me. And those, I mean, it just makes it so much harder. So, highly recommend letting God walk with you through stuff, because He really desperately wants to. And He's always there. One of the things that that you should go and like reflect on is some of your like coping mechanisms, and like looking at how you have coped with change and adversity and all of these different things in the past, seeing how they worked out, or how they didn't work out, or how they were healthy or unhealthy. And if you're not sure if they were, like ask somebody who is mentoring you. Ask Nettie, ask me, ask Ben, ask Dennis, ask any of our leadership team members. Like anybody that's here would love to talk to you about like good coping mechanisms. Okay. There was the 4 things that you can do to have the right attitude to face adversity. That's in your book. Okay, and then it's on to you.
All right. So, do you guys have any questions before we close for Swan and all of her wisdom?
Can you share just some of those good coping mechanisms that you have across the board?
Wasn't prepared for this question. I think one of the best ones that I've like gone into and out of practice with is sitting and physically like praying and giving something to God, like in sometimes in every moment. And like I said, I've gone into and out of that like habit, and so like I'm for sure not perfect in that, but I think that like that's been one of the best ones that has been effective for me. But definitely having accountability, definitely having a community, those are, I mean, not really specific coping mechanisms, but like really good things that also help. Yeah.
I know, like for me, so I'm airborne, or I was airborne, so like you jump out of planes, and like on one of my jumps, I did my parachute cigarette, which basically means just all the way down. And then, so then it's like, all right, well, I guess we're going to reserve. And then the reserve failed too. So it was a really good time. Just riding down, just trying to fix my problems in air, and everything's getting all tangled, reserve, whatever the main. But they caught air like right before. So, good. So then when you have a bad jump, the first thing you do is you jump again immediately, and then you're first guy in the door. So that way you can overcome your fear. So sometimes like coping, it's just like, just get right back into it like as fast as possible, so you don't have time to think about like what just happened. And you never quite feel closer to God when you're about to jump out of an aircraft. So.
Yeah, I guess.
So yeah.
That's terrifying.
I love it.
Why would anyone
I'm
jump
with you.
Why would anybody want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane? Even if it's going down, you know, I'll
$150 a month, bro. That's how it costs. That's how much I got for it.
Alright. Anybody else?
Yeah. I'll take my chances in the metal cylinder.
Well, your homework is read chapters 2 and 3, and I will send you the rest of that we didn't have time to cover. Do your bucket list. And next, well, I also wanted to say too, like I know all of us are at different stages of our understanding of God, and I just want everyone to know that if you would like to know more information about what it looks like to be a Christ follower or how to start a relationship with Jesus, leadership team, Casey, Eli, myself, Swan, we would love to talk to anybody about what that looks like. All questions are welcome, and won't be judged or anything like that. Like, we just love to talk to people about what that looks like and how we can encourage you. Next week we have Dennis speaking at Large Group. Don't want to miss that. We also have the International Mission Board Rep Patrick Swartz with us. He's awesome. He was actually with us on a mission trip over spring break at Beach Reach, and he's so much fun. And so look forward to hearing him speak. And then, like Eli said, we will have booths set up all over the house where students will be sharing about their mission trips from Beach Reach to summer things. And I know as seniors, sometimes you might be thinking, well, there's no more opportunity for me to go on a mission trip, but there is. You can go on spring break with us to Beach Reach. And you also can take a week, 2 months, whatever God calls you to, and actually go on a mission trip before you start your job. We've had so many students that, like one girl, she was a business major. She graduated in May. She had a job with P&G, and she actually went overseas from May through the end of August doing accounting for the International Mission Board in Russia. It was an amazing job, and she started her job with P&G in September. And P&G loved the fact that she had overseas experience, and so it's not too late to go on a mission trip. And so if that's something that you're interested in, or you would like to, combine your degree with a mission trip, we would love to talk to you. So don't count that out as far as like it's too late to go. Do we have any prayer requests? Anything going on that you want us to pray about, or any praises?
I got to speak to Daniel today at Purdue ITAP. Awesome. Show me around the office, give me a tour on what they do there in different branches.
Okay.
That may turn into an opportunity for me. Look into a full-time job.
Is anybody mechanical or civil? You already talked to Martha, right?
Yes.
Okay, who else?
I'm mechanical.
Okay, I will send you a link. We got some alumni that's looking for positions with our company, so I can connect you.
Sweet.
Anybody else? Prayer requests, praises?
I guess we had a family friend pass away recently, so I guess just pray for her family and for her soul.
All right, if you have anything during the week, know that you can always put them in the group me, and we'll be praying for you guys. Anything you need, questions that you have. So, let's see. Eli, will you close us in prayer?
Dear God, I thank you for this day. I thank you for this time that you've given us to come and to learn more about what life looks like next. God, I thank you for these different speakers. I thank you for Swan tonight, preparing us for change and for what we should be looking forward to in ways to prepare for change. God, I pray that you would us to do that well so that we can be most effective for you. And I pray for all of us in this room in our next stage of life where you can give us that we would honor you in whichever way we do that. And I ask all these things in your name.
Remember, guys, volleyball, please take everything with you. And girls, hope you can stay for talking to us.